All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good
Um,
morning.
Good morning.
it's going to be an exciting discussion because this week's chapter are significantly differently compared to the ones from last week. They are a little bit more, a little bit less technical, if you will. They are a little bit more, I don't know how to explain, but I guess you know what I mean. Let's begin with the first one, the guru myth. This is one of my favorites. You know why? Because you guys, students, love to do this thing. So you have a problem, whatever that could be, and any student, and then you say, Humberto, my app doesn't run. What do you want me to do? I mean, I'm as lost as you are based on the information that you just gave me. And it's as the author says, you have to give context. It doesn't matter how many years the other person has been working. If you do not provide context, then no one will be able to help you. And students love to do this. Hey, Humberto, my app is crashing. Hey, Humberto, task number 3 doesn't work. All right, what do you want me to do? It's what I think. Of course, I don't respond like that, but it's what I think. Usually, what is it that I respond with? Who remembers? At least Enrique and Murad that has been a bit longer with me. What is it that I say when someone ask me that?
What does it say on the log?
For example, hey, could you please provide me a screenshot with the information or things like that? Or at the very least, I say, hey, I need you to share the screen. I need to see the error. I mean, I am as lost as you are without the context. So now I want to hear from you. After reading this particular chapter, what are you going to apply from now on? Not only with me, but with anyone.
Yeah, just like it's common sense. It's
It's
common
not
sense.
common. It's not common sense because otherwise people would do it. No one
Oh
do
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. But after no, the thing is, I've come from like a mechanic background as well, so it's common sense for me because I've been ingrained with it since I was a kid, seeing my
Okay.
uncle working, and then the customer coming, it's like, oh, there's something wrong with the car, and it's like, okay,
Mm.
what is wrong with the car? No, it's making a noise. When it's making the noise?
Yeah, exactly. So in essence, what is it that you're going to do? Well, two things. If someone asks you for help, IT help, you say, well, provide me with some background. I need some background. Background can be run the app, show it to me to see what's happening. Background could be send me the error message. Background can be send me a screenshot of the error that appears. That is background. And whenever, and more importantly, when you ask for help, could be to me, could be to a classmate, or it could be when you contact tech support for anything, you need to provide context. So remember, you need to provide context. Okay? Any thoughts on this? Any thoughts on this? No? So as they say online or on page 73, um, you need to provide enough context so that the person can effectively apply his or her skills. So remember, context is very, very important. Okay,
Yeah.
nice. Let's continue. On the next one, I have to admit that I do not agree with the title, but I agree with the idea. The one of hard work does not pay off. Again, I don't really agree with the title. Maybe when you put it in the context, speaking about context, when you put it in the context that he describes, okay, maybe I understand. But I have to admit, I would have used another title. Nevertheless, I do agree with the content, but I want to hear from you. What is the idea that he's trying to transmit, that the author is trying to transmit on this particular chapter? Regardless if you agree with the title or not, what is the idea that he's trying to transmit?
Basically, that if you spend a lot of time, all of your time, just working, coding on the same framework, on the same thing, you will not grow. And if you don't
Mm,
grow, you don't get better. Therefore, your work, you basically get stagnated in one place in time.
okay, okay. Anyone else? What other ideas did you get from it? Murad, Katerina, any thoughts?
So probably we need to review our old code because we get like new knowledge new experience, and we can refactor it, make it work better.
Exactly. Murad, any thoughts?
You mean from the title? How
No, from
how
the
I did it?
chapter.
From the whole chapter? Yeah, because from the whole chapter, so he just that the programmers should be more effective by working less and learning more, because
Okay.
it's so important of understanding the problem and reflecting on work and adjusting the behavior. Yeah.
So basically, what he's saying is that whenever you're a developer, it's not only about working. He used here the analogy like I believe that he said it, or I want to believe he said. I'm not that I imagined it, but somewhere here he speaks about. No, I think I imagined it. Okay, but somewhere he spends that as if you are just like a hamster on a hamster wheel,
Yeah.
just like
He
he
said
said
it.
it,
He
right?
said it. He said it.
Without
He said
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
improvements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He said it. I knew I didn't imagine that. Okay. Exactly. So because whenever you program, there is more than just that aspect. There's also the aspect of education, for example. And then he mentions that you do need to do a balance with all of these different components. The aspect of course working and doing whatever it is that you need to be working, but also the aspect of preparation. And preparation is very important because if you don't appropriately prepare, you could end up creating the wrong thing, for example, the wrong behavior, the wrong trying to solve the, the correct solution for the wrong problem, you see? Or worst case scenario, the wrong problem with the wrong solution as well. I mean, that's even worse. Yeah. So you do need to reflect. I think what he means is that you cannot just be fully blinded to whatever happens in your surroundings. And by surrounding, I mean, once again, using this word context, the context of the project. How is the project evolving? How is the project changing? How does those changes affect the direction of the project in general? And a big one is that whenever I don't, yeah, this has happened to you, I'm pretty sure, because regardless of the project you work on, as you advance on the project, you learn more about the project, and things that you thought were correct in the beginning, you realize, oh, this is not fully correct. Now I have new information. Now I have more information. So as you progress, you learn, and as you learn, you either realize that certain assumptions were wrong or certain assumptions were partly correct, not totally incorrect, but partly correct. And you need to make changes, okay, or adapt to those changes. And yeah, here he also says, and I highly recommend this here. Um, Again, I think he said it somewhere, but I don't remember where. This aspect that it is important to not only focus. Oh, here it is. You probably need to read books, go to conferences, communicate with other professionals, and experiment. So these are other quote unquote activities that you should also do. I would say that in general, companies are quite open to sending developers to this activities, type of activities. So whenever you start looking for job, ask for that. Do you guys support learning? And can I dedicate a small percentage of my time to do learning? That can be as easy as going to a conference. It could be things like attending a workshop. It doesn't have to be like a conference in some other country, but ask about those things because yeah, some companies are open to it, others might not be as happy, or you need to do a little bit more pushing to get what you want. So keep that in mind because learning is very, very important, especially in IT where things go very quickly. They advance, they change. You need to keep up to date, right? So keep that in mind when selecting a job. Good. Let's move on. How to use a bug tracker. This one, it's a little bit related, in my opinion, to the first one, the Guru myth. And this is something that you need to, like, you have to know this. Page 76, the 3 bullet points. Whenever you report a bug, you have to specify these things. People will not be able to fix a bug or help you with the problem you have if you do not provide these things. Like, for example, you tell me, hey, Humberto, my app doesn't work. Okay, at the very least, tell me how to reproduce it. I'm going to run it on my side, on my code, on my computer, on my phone. But if you don't tell me how to reproduce it, how am I supposed to fix it? And there are some problems that are known as race conditions. Race conditions are problems in which like there are two things, or let's say two things happening, and whenever like a race, one thing happens before the other, then the problem happens. But it's not always the case that that thing gets first, and as a result, the bug doesn't always show itself. And those are, for example, bugs that are quite problematic to reproduce because you don't really know. Like, for example, another one that is hard to reproduce. I was actually speaking to a colleague. He works in iOS, and they had a bug that the app would log you out after 1 hour or something like that. After you were logged in for 1 hour, the thing would log you out. But in the beginning, they had no idea what was causing. They could not reproduce the problem. I mean, why 1 hour? If you think, I mean, somehow this friend eventually found, wait a minute, there's a pattern here. After approximately an hour, this thing happens. So then he focused on that. But before that, he couldn't reproduce. He just knew that after a while, he opened the app, the thing locked you out. How do you reproduce that thing? And if you cannot reproduce it, where do you even start fixing that problem?
Even to reproduce it, you have to wait the full hour.
Yeah,
see
exactly.
if it happens. Oh, it happens.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't catch it. Oh, I have to wait another hour.
Yeah. So actually, I met him last week, and we were like having a drink, and every hour he will be, oh yeah, the app still locks me in. So he was testing if he had fixed the bug. So every hour he was, okay, yeah, I'm still logged in. So this thing seems to work. So anyways, the point is reproducing. If you cannot reproduce, it's very hard to replicate. And if you don't give the steps for reproduce, the developer will not be able to replicate. If the developer cannot replicate, it will be very hard to find the bug. And if we cannot find the bug, we will have a hard time solving it, because then let's say that I cannot reproduce it. How do I know that I actually solved it? Let's say I wrote some code, but I cannot reproduce the bug. How do I know that I actually solved it? You cannot even reproduce it. So reproducing it so that, once again, you can focus your attention on that part. But when you have written a solution or a so-called solution, you're going to try to reproduce it again. And if it still happens, then you haven't solved anything. The thing is still there. But thanks to the fact that you can reproduce. So keep that in mind. And that's related also to the guru myth. Whenever you ask for help, provide those steps, say what is it that you expected, and say what is it that is happening. So I'm going to give you two personal examples. I was using an app and the thing was not working. The app is fantastic. It does exactly what I need. It converts, I think it's JPEG to PNG or some stuff like that, and also compresses stuff. And one day I uploaded the thing that I wanted to compress, and it was crashing on me. And I'm like, what? And eventually I found the problem. Like I could reproduce it myself. And it's one of these software that is not built by a company. It's like an indie developer. So you feel a little bit more connection with them because it's not like a big company behind it. It's more like a one person. So I contacted the guy directly. He had his email on the support, and I said, hey, I'm having a little bit of a trouble in here. And because it was a developer speaking to a developer, I knew, the pain, Yeah. So I actually made a video for him, and I put the video, and I said, hey, here's a video showing you how to reproduce the thing. And I said, I'm a developer myself. And so I spoke in a techie way because I knew he would understand. And of course he appreciated it. And then he released a new version with the appropriate correction. But if I would have just said, hey, the app is crashing, this thing doesn't work, how helpful would that have been? Not much. And a second one, Katerina might know a bit more because it's a little change I made in the education. But Katerina, in the calendar, that everything is kind of like all the spaces went away. You know how the part when I put in the calendar, when you open a lecture, the description, all the text is kind of cramped. There's no spacing, there's no nothing. Do you remember that in the LMS? Yeah, well, that is not supposed to be like that. When I write the stuff, I can see my spaces, but when I click submit, all the spaces go away. What do you think I did? I contacted the company and I said, hey, look, there's a bug here. I put my spaces, I clicked the create, and then all the spaces go away. And I clearly follow these steps. You know what they told me? They said I spoke to the developers. They say this is the expected behavior. I'm like, how is this supposed to be the expected behavior? I'm writing a paragraph with all the stuff. You take it out. You take out all the spacing without even telling me. How is this the expected behavior? You're confusing me. Anyways, I didn't want to argue, but I said, look, call it a bug, call it a feature. This thing is terrible. Just put it normal. Just if I put a space, keep the space. Anyways, I don't think they're gonna fix it, but yeah, it's like that. Anyways, but yeah,
It's a feature.
yeah,
That's
I
the
said,
best.
I said, look, I don't care if you call it a bug or if you call it because he said no one has requested this feature. I said I'm not asking for a feature. I'm asking you to fix a problem. I don't think this is a feature. And then I said, look, it doesn't matter if you call it a feature request or a bug. Just make it happen, please, because it's very annoying. But again, I don't think they're gonna do it. Good. So keep that in mind, everyone. Keep that in mind. Any thoughts on this? Has anyone contacted support? It could be any type of support. It could be like tech support, mechanic support, any type of support. And have you experienced, yeah, something like this?
So I created the bug report. So yeah,
Aha.
yeah, it's like the first step for all like testers. They told us like if you see the bug, you must to reproduce it at least 3 times.
Okay.
Yes, and the step by step, and all the step must be because if they so usually when you have the really big team, developer have a lot of bugs, and they try you. Okay, you don't have the steps. Okay, then we declare
Out.
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So they don't will they have their own work to do, and they will not search all day for your bug to fix it. So if you want to fix it, you have to do it right. So yeah, all the steps. If we need, we record like if it's needed. If no, we just attach screenshots. So yeah.
Exactly.
So,
And that is key what Katerina said, because in previous companies that I have worked, customers will say there's a bug, but they will never provide steps to reproduce. Even if customer success said or customer service said, how do you reproduce it? They wouldn't do it. So when the thing got to us, we would spend maybe 10 minutes trying to reproduce. But if we couldn't reproduce, hey, forget it. Close that stuff until they come again. And if they come again, they better come with instructions, because otherwise we're not going to spend the whole day trying to fix or trying to find the bug. Yeah, we did spend maybe 10 minutes, something like that, but forget it. We have a long list of things to do. So that's very right. If you want your case to be taken seriously, basically, make sure to provide the details, the steps, what is expected, but what is happening instead. Yeah. Very good. Very good. My favorite. Improve code by removing it.
Taking stuff out, your favorite thing.
Yeah, it looks counterintuitive, but it's so true. You have no idea the pleasure that you get whenever you have the chance to delete bunch of classes, bunch of code. I mean, I think it gives you more pleasure than actually writing the code. Like deleting code is beautiful, because you know what it means to delete code. It means
you didn't need it.
Yes, that's correct, but it means less maintenance or less things to maintain, less headaches whenever there's a bug, less headaches whenever you need to navigate through the code base. It also means, again, less code to maintain. And it also means then that you're making your code base slimmer. It means that there were stuff in there that was never needed for A or B reason. That's another, yeah, it was not needed. Boom, you delete it. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I would say you might experience that whenever you're working on an internship, for example, or you might experience that when you reach Android and you have all these apps. You go back to it, you reflect, and you say, hey, I don't really need all of this. Boom, 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 you start cleaning code. It's the same feeling as cleaning your house. I mean, it just feels wonderful. Any thoughts on this? Any thoughts on this?
It hasn't happened to me that much, actually. Whenever I go back to code or the project that I'm working on, and I'm like, oh, I need to add something or something, I'm like, written code, I usually need to add code. I'm not yet in the step that I'll have to take away code.
You usually because the project is relatively early, so that doesn't happen that much early. But as the project advances, okay, you realize, oh, we don't need this feature anymore. Boom. Hey, this feature now has to be a little bit simpler. Boom, you delete the parts. So give it a little bit of time. When the projects start to age a little bit, you realize, hey, we can do it. But here's the thing, and I want to reflect on this, because you might, as the author says, but why do we even need to delete code in the first place? One example could be because, as I mentioned, requirements have changed, the needs of the customer has changed, and hey, we don't need this feature anymore. This is not relevant anymore. You delete it. Yeah? But there are other reasons, and many of them are because of the developer. And I have to fight against one of this. If you go to page 79, they say the first one, it was a fun bit of extra stuff. So developers love to do this. Developers, especially the techie ones, they say, hey, it would be nice to have this. It would be a really nice way to learn something new. No. The customer's project is not the place. It's not your playground. It's not your place to be putting stuff. Yeah.
Let's implement a new library. It's gonna be fun.
For example, the customer's code is not your playground. So do not use it because it's going to be fun. Do a separate project for that. I don't struggle that much with that one, but the next one, I do struggle with the next one. Someone thought that it might be needed in the future, so might as well do it now. That is very true. You have no idea how many times I mean, you cannot create everything on one sitting, okay? You have to go through stages. And even though you might be on stage number 1, especially if you are like the developer and also, if you will, the project manager, you already know in your head that in a few months, you have to implement this. Right now, it's not needed, but it will be needed down the line. So whenever you are the one writing the code and also determining the direction of the thing, you fall for that. And I do a lot. And I say, hey, I don't need this now, but now that I have all the idea fresh, let me implement it. Sometimes it works. By the time I reach that stage, I say, oh, I'm really happy I did this before, because if I will have to start again to get all the context, it would have been a pain. But very often it's just there and I never really use it. And I realize, what is this code even doing here? I remember, I thought I was going to use it. It has been 2 years and I haven't needed this code. This behavior is hidden for the students, for example. And that's a big one. If you don't need it right now, just don't write it.
But this writing code, you comment it or you just leave it like that?
No, it's not commented. I never write commented code.
Okay.
It could be like a feature. Let's hypothetically speaking, let's say the plugin, the LineroTech plugin. I might have a feature that is implemented, as an example, but because it's halfway there, I hide it so that you cannot see it. But the code is there. Behind the scenes, the code is there, but it's never activated because I put the button to be hidden. And it stays there because I say, I'm going to do this for the students, and it stays there. And eventually, so it's not that it's commented, it's active. It's just you can never really run it because it's an example. It's not the case though, but it has happened. I don't have anything hidden at the moment in nothing.
For me, it's when I'm creating data classes for like APIs or like interactions with classes. I usually start with a bunch of parameters, like I'm gonna need this, yes. that. And then I never use this, that. But then at the end, I just deleted it. But at the beginning, I'm just, okay, I'm gonna need this, that. And then I just keep working. Then at the end, oh, I didn't need it. And then I just deleted it. Oh, out.
Exactly. But it's nice. It's nice when you realize, okay, I don't need this. The app is working exactly as I want, and it requires less code than what I thought. That is beautiful. It's a beautiful feeling. So yeah, keep those things in mind. And here, this one hasn't really happened that much, at least in my experience, either myself or in a team. But the programmer invented extra requirements. Okay, maybe I have never been in a team that people invent requirements. Maybe there's misinterpretation of requirements, that's for sure. But I don't want to say that people are just inventing stuff because they want to justify something. I have not been in that situation. Probably has happened, but misinterpretation, yes. But intentionally inventing stuff, not in my experience.
More work.
So also the third one, it didn't appear to be that extra. So let's do it. Okay, that's what happened to me. I for me it's number 2, but number 3, if I know I don't need this, I'm not gonna write it. But if that one doesn't happen too much. But anyways, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Sometimes you do want to make sure that you don't implement more than what it's needed. And Caterina, do you remember that from your discussion on Tuesday, the one of the lecture? What was it that I said in that lecture? Do you remember about the boundary? Do you remember that whenever we're writing code, we need to take into account the boundary?
Boundary of value.
And the requirements.
Yes.
Exactly. So that is very, very important, meaning we have to understand what are the real requirements of the project. That's why speaking to the customer is very important. And then we create behaviors and features to satisfy those requirements. If there is no need for such a requirement, do not even spend the time on that. But the first step is speaking to the customer and speaking frequently to the customer to fully understand if we are addressing the problem, to fully understand if we are understanding what is the pain and making sure that our code with the minimal amount of features and code can satisfy those requirements. And if that's the case, then there's no need to write extra code. So I would say that speaking to the customer frequently is very, very important. Very, very important, so that you can get constant feedback, so that you can adjust that direction, so that you can test assumptions. The worst thing that can happen is you spend, say, 6-7 months programming, you never speak to the customer or very rarely speak to the customer, then you go, and I think you're going to have a bigger surprise than the other one, and unfortunately might not be a positive one. So frequent communication is important. Go ahead, Enrique.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm meeting my client every week, and whenever I get stuck or I find myself in a dilemma that is not up to me, it's up to her, because I just like, hey, what would you like to happen in this particular scenario?
Exactly.
I get a response. I keep working. It keeps the flow. It keeps the flow faster paced.
Exactly. And at the end, you don't have any surprises, in the sense that she knows exactly what she's expecting or what to expect, and you're adjusting as you move forward. So the client is satisfied, you know exactly what to do and where to go. The challenge is, and that is where you, especially in the beginning, when the client doesn't know what they want. That happens very often. So in the beginning, it is your responsibility to, at the very least, give them a baseline. Hey, just make any decisions, just make any assumptions, give them a baseline. And from there, you help them determine that direction. But at the very least, create a baseline. Good. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on this one? Improving code by removing it? Any thoughts? So keep that in mind. You will struggle with these things. Oh, it's an easy feature. Let me put it. Oh, I know I'm going to need this. Your instinct is going to do it. And sometimes you're going to fall for your instinct. But remember this aspect, okay? And the last one, install me. Does anyone relate to this? What he was explaining here?
I mean, the way that he wrote it was kind of a satiric rant of the actual problem. But basically what he's saying is just install it, try it, and if it doesn't work, get it away. Your computer is not that important. No one cares. Just try it. Instead of arguing with yourself for like half an hour to see, oh, this tool that might exactly do what I exactly want, but let me just read and read and read. No, install it, test it. Worst case scenario, you have to format your computer. There you go. It's not much big of a deal.
Yeah, I would say I see this chapter in two perspectives. One particular thing I do agree with him. I hate downloading software that do stuff on my computer and I have no idea what's happening.
The
So
wizard.
I do agree that at the very least I need to know what's going on, or that I can easily install the program. I remember this happened to me once. I was working on an Android project. I decided, I don't know why I did that, to install something. I downloaded some version of Java. Then from that point on, I could not run any of my Android projects because all of them, like the Java version, changed. It messed up the entire thing. I'm like, I cannot run no project now. I mean, all the projects are messed up. And I said, okay, what did I do? Like, what did this last thing that I downloaded do that changed everything? It took me like an entire day to figure out, and I was so mad because I couldn't run anything. And eventually it was because it downloaded some version. I deleted that stuff that was hidden below layers and layers and layers of folders. I don't know how even I found that thing, and I deleted it, and then everything worked. But oh my god, it was terrible. So I understand from that perspective, but I agree. Sometimes it's easy as a download the thing. At least let me make sure I can uninstall this, and then you take it from there.
Try it.
But yeah. But good. Any thoughts? By the way, with this of install, I want to recommend something to you. I mean, I use Mac. I believe you use Windows, at least if you have the schools thing. I don't fully know in Windows, I have to be honest, because I don't use Windows. But I know Mac and Linux. There are different ways of installing stuff. You can install them by, how you click like download, it brings the .exe file, and then you double click it. And in Mac, we have the same thing, but it's not a .exe. It's some other DMG or something like that. The point is, that's one way of downloading stuff. The other way how you can download stuff is by using what is known as like a package manager. Like, for example, in the case of Mac, it's called Homebrew. So you download stuff not by clicking a button or through a GUI, but you download it through the terminal via commands. The benefit of that is that if something doesn't work, just as with a command I can uninstall all that stuff. Yeah. And it makes it easy to manage. So you don't have to do that. Just keep in mind that there are different ways of installing. And usually I try to install things in that direction.
Not so popular in Windows. Not so popular in Windows. That's more like a Linux thing. When you go to the terminal, like, oh, let's install Google Chrome. You install Google Chrome via terminal. I just download the package.
Exactly.
In Windows, it's not much used because the terminal on Windows is not half as powerful as the Linux one.
Maybe time to change.
No. Maybe for work. For work, it's good to have like a dual boot. I have Windows from myself and I have Linux to run stuff. Yeah. And it's good to learn as well. It's good to learn Linux.
Sorry, just a little thing. In my one job, they say, okay, Humberto, which computer do you want? And I said, you guys give a Mac? And I said, no, we don't give a Mac. I said, well, I guess you give Windows, okay, but I need to change it to Linux. Otherwise, I'm not even going to work here. And I said, yeah, you can change it to Linux. I said, okay, we have a deal. But Windows, I would never. I mean, I have one here actually, because since I know that many students use Windows, there are certain things I need to run there to make sure that I know what the student is going through. But I suffer a little bit when I have to use it. Anyways, thank you everyone for today. Hopefully you enjoyed today's session. I thought it was significantly better than last time, the topics at least. And I hope to see you all next week.
Yep.
Yeah. Have a good one, everyone. Hey, Dov.
Bye.
Hey,